Good evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephanie Cox. Here are today's top stories. News just in, the UK's Prime Minister is now in intensive care after his condition worsened. He's been in hospital since last night, suffering symptoms from the new virus. States are gearing up to tackle a critical 2 weeks ahead in the fight against the coronavirus, or CCP virus, while the death toll in the US rises above 10,000. In New York, the virus may have reached its peak, but the governor is still staying on the safe side and extending the shutdown. Organizations across the U.S. have told employees to stop using a popular video conferencing software. A new report shows it's sending sensitive information to servers in China. And some doctors are using light technology to disinfect their clinics. Studies show it could kill viruses without harming people. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is now in intensive care. The 55-year-old was admitted to hospital on Sunday night as a precaution after his virus symptoms persisted. The UK's foreign minister will deputise for him where necessary. In a tweet this morning before his condition deteriorated, the Prime Minister said he was in good spirits. Johnson himself has been in self-isolation in his flat on Downing Street after testing positive 10 days ago. Politicians from across the spectrum, including President Trump, have expressed their support for the UK Prime Minister. A spokesperson today saying he's receiving excellent care. And moments ago, President Trump said he would make the USNS Comfort, a military hospital ship, available for virus patients. He added that New Jersey would also be able to use it.
And I was informed that Governor Cuomo has already told you and announced, he called me up a little while ago and he asked whether or not it would be possible to use the ship with respect to fighting the virus, and we hadn't had that in mind at all, but we're going to let him do it, and we're also going to let New Jersey.
President Trump announced he would send 3,000 public health personnel to New York. He also said the military will build several other field hospitals nationwide. The president thanked companies like 3M and Apple for producing medical supplies for healthcare workers. Trump also mentioned that he asked two leading U.S. therapeutics companies to contact London in an effort to help Prime Minister Boris Johnson. And a top White House economic advisor says he'd award the Trump administration's relief program an A. His comments come amid a slowdown in getting money out to Americans impacted by the pandemic.
Standing on the White House Drive on Monday, Director of the National Economic Council, Larry Kudlow, said the country is doing okay.
I think we're doing okay, frankly. I know there are always a few glitches, but I'd give it an A.
He's referring to the White House's massive $2.2 trillion stimulus package, the largest of its kind in American history. But small businesses in need faced a bumpy start Friday. Few were able to apply, while some big banks said they weren't ready for applications. Millions of businesses were expected to apply for the rescue loans. The aid would come from the $349 billion Paycheck Protection Program put in place to help them retain workers and pay bills. Kudlow acknowledged the bumpy start, saying they know some lousy numbers would be coming up.
Well, it's a massive package, and give it a few weeks minimum, a month, and let's see how effective we are. Let's see how efficient we are. And let's see if we need more money, we'll go and seek more money.
He added that the goal is to keep people going until the virus situation improves.
I still believe, given our assistance package and hope and maybe prayer that we're in a 4 to 8 week period, we can get a pretty good snapback. Okay.
His comments come as stocks around the world jumped on Monday after some of the hardest hit areas offered sparks of hope that the worst of the outbreak may be on the horizon.
U.S. deaths from the CCP virus have surpassed 10,000. White House officials say the next 2 weeks will be vital in stopping the spread of the virus. One official compared the next week to Pearl Harbor and 9/11.
Weeks into the U.S. battle against the coronavirus, healthcare providers in the nation's hotspots are bracing for what may be the most difficult stretch of all.
We are very, very worried about, in particular, our intensive care capacity.
The Trump administration forecasts a peak in U.S. cases in the next 2 weeks as states try to keep up. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer said key facilities in her state have just days' worth of personal protective equipment, or PPE, for healthcare workers.
We are doing everything that we can at the state level to secure more personal protection equipment.
Modeling suggests Louisiana could be reaching a peak in cases, but other states saw weekend upticks, like California.
It really is a race against time to have the equipment and the supplies that we need as the number of people in our hospitals continues to grow.
New Jersey and Pennsylvania also saw cases rise in recent days.
And in New York, the virus may have reached its peak. The governor says the number of deaths in the state have been effectively flat for 2 days and hospitalizations are down. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more on that.
New hospitalizations are down in New York, and Governor Cuomo said this could mean the virus has reached its peak.
Total number of hospitalizations are down. The ICU admissions are down, and the daily intubations are down. Those are all good signs, and again would suggest a possible flattening of the curve.
On top of that, Cuomo said COVID deaths have been flat for 2 days, but despite the optimism, he extended the statewide shutdown again to be on the safe side.
We still have to extend New York pause, because if that curve is turning, it's turning because the rate of infection is going down. One of the reasons the rate of infection is going down is because social distancing is working.
Governor Cuomo said President Trump's been helpful to the state, and he'll ask the president to let COVID patients onto a military ship he sent over. As for ventilators, the governor said the state has enough for now.
We don't need any additional ventilators right now, and we have California has released ventilators. State of Washington has released ventilators. We got 1,000 ventilators from China. So right now, we're okay.
Cuomo added that hospitals may say they're running low on medical supplies, but they have everything they need so far. Miguel Moreno, NTD News, New York.
And responding to a rumor that the city would start using parks as burial sites, the governor's press secretary said they're not considering it, but they are eyeing Hart Island for temporary burials. And as governments struggle to source enough protective gear for frontline workers, New York is working with local manufacturing companies to produce them. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio visited the Brooklyn Navy Yard on Monday, where workers are making surgical gowns to keep up with the high demand. New York officials say public hospitals in the city have at least a week's worth of gowns, and private hospitals and nursing homes are running even lower. De Blasio's office says the factories plan to produce more than 300,000 gowns by the end of April. And at the same time, American Airlines is slashing travel to the city. USA Today says the carrier is only operating 13 daily flights into New York area airports compared to 271 last year. The airline says the demand for flights is disappearing. The announcement comes 1 day after United cut its flights to New York. Other airlines, including JetBlue and Spirit, had already suspended their service. And for the first time ever, the U.S. State Department designated a Russia-based white supremacist group a terrorist organization. The label will make it easier for prosecutors to bring terrorism-related charges against anyone who supports or aids the group.
The United States is designating a Russia-based white supremacist group as a terrorist organization. It's called the Russian Imperial Movement. The State Department announced the designation on Monday.
This is the first time the United States has ever designated white supremacist terrorists, illustrating how seriously this administration takes the threat. We are taking actions no previous administration has ever taken to counter this threat overseas.
The administration placed individual sanctions on 3 of the group's leaders, adding them to a list of specially designed global terrorists.
RIM is a terrorist group that provides paramilitary-style training to neo-Nazis and white supremacists, and it plays a prominent role in trying to rally like-minded Europeans and Americans into a common front against their perceived enemies.
Sales also said the group has 2 training facilities in St. Petersburg, Russia. He added, they're likely being used to train white nationalists in urban assault, weapons, and hand-to-hand combat.
And updates from around the world. German Chancellor Angela Merkel says the EU is facing its biggest test yet. And in Spain, 2 million stolen masks have been recovered.
German Chancellor Merkel says the EU is facing its biggest test since its founding. She said it was important that the bloc emerges strong from the economic crisis unleashed by the virus. In Asia, Japan is preparing to declare a state of emergency on Tuesday. It will affect Tokyo and 6 other prefectures and is set to last for about a month. The declaration will give governors authority to call on people to stay at home and ask businesses to close. Elsewhere, police found 2 million stolen masks in a city in northern Spain. The stolen material, which included other medical supplies, was estimated to be worth over $5.3 million. Some of it had been sold to the country's neighbor, Portugal. But a spark of hope has emerged in Greece. 7-year-old pianist Stelios Karasidis composed an isolation waltz for a world under lockdown.
I am dedicating to you a piece of my own.
The child prodigy has written piano concertos and played in concert halls around the world, including New York's Carnegie Hall.
Coming up, is the Chinese Communist Party spying on you? One expert says it's possible via a popular video conferencing software. Find out more after the break.
90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. They're not out to tell you the truth of what's happening. They're out to tell you the picture of the world that they represent. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in facts, and prevent people from being misled. This is a battle between truth and deceit. Subscribe today and join the Americans who are seeking truth and tradition. We'd love to have you on board.
Chinese officials insist the epidemic is under control there, but panic buying and ever-increasing preventative measures tell a different story. Our reporter Tiffany Meyer brings us more.
All of China went silent for 3 minutes on April 4th, remembering those who perished. Many family members in Wuhan wanted to honor those lost to the virus. But family members are disclosing that the cremated remains they received from the funeral homes were not those of family members. They dare not bury the ashes. We previously reported on a Chinese netizen saying the ashes of many dead people are mixed together and divided into many portions. Each family just gets a random portion. One family went to get their mother's ashes, but the cremated remains included a man's belt buckle. Another said his father never needed dentures, but among the ashes was a porcelain tooth. One netizen wrote, the Chinese Communist Party deceived family members who were lining up to collect the ashes of their loved ones. And this once again shows the evil nature of the party that has always been lying and using violence. Chinese people will continue to realize it. Even as officials insist the epidemic is under control, panic buying is on the rise in China. Problem is, China imports a lot of its grain. Because of the global pandemic, many countries have restricted exports, including rice and oil. Hubei province, Chongqing, Shandong, Gansu, and even in China's capital, Beijing, have all witnessed panic buying. Stores show empty shelves. Residents say the reality is different. On April 2nd, Mr. Zhang from Wuhan told our sister media, the Epoch Times, that someone died at home the previous day from the virus. He added, lifting the lockdown on the 8th is risky because the outbreak there isn't under control. According to health officials in a northeastern province, Heilongjiang, on April 2nd, there were no new confirmed cases, no suspected cases, and only one new asymptomatic case, which was imported from abroad. But strangely, Jiamusi, a city in Heilongjiang province, was put on lockdown again on April 2nd due to the CCP virus, and an internal announcement went out that exact date, saying that certain cases are growing exponentially. Authorities are now asked to manage the outbreak again as before. All residential blocks be closed off again, and only residents should be allowed to enter. Mr. Li from Jiamusi told us there has been a constant stream of confirmed cases in the city, but authorities don't allow the hospitals to report them. He said the standard statement now is that there are only cases from outside or asymptomatic cases.
A new report shows a popular video conferencing software is sending sensitive meeting information to servers in Beijing. An expert says this poses a significant security risk. NTD's Juliet Song reports.
Video conferencing software Zoom has seen a surge in usage during the outbreak, growing about 20 times to over 200 million daily users. Schools, big corporations, and even high-level politicians use the service. But a new report shows that Zoom sends secret encryption keys to servers in Beijing. This poses a significant security risk.
Its transmission to the server in Beijing essentially means it is within the CCP's reach, so it can be intercepted. That is to say, the CCP has the technology to intercept data and information from it.
Tong said the security flaw could enable the Chinese Communist Party to easily collect business intelligence. The regime can learn about the high-level operations in big corporations and their strategic decisions. It can then be a step ahead of the competition. The research also found that most of Zoom's research and development staff are in China. Tong says this makes the company susceptible to infiltration by the CCP.
Even if the company itself is good, it may be innocent, but once it's established in China, it will have a presence there. Then, particularly if it has commercial or technological capabilities that the CCP needs, the CCP will certainly not let it go.
Tong says having a company in China means you have to play by the party's rules, and the regime has many ways to infiltrate.
One of the most common means is sending government-controlled persons to work in the company. Buying them out also happens.
The Chinese regime can also threaten the company's bottom line. If the company doesn't obey the party, authorities could make things difficult for them. Zoom's founder, Eric Yuan, is originally from China, and Tong says national ties also makes him vulnerable to pressure from the Chinese regime. The New York Department of Education and Elon Musk's SpaceX have banned Zoom over privacy concerns. Juliet Song, NTD News, New York.
Many businesses at the virus epicenter have been hit hard by the outbreak. Now they're protesting and demanding help from the communist regime. NTD's Shiwen Rong has more.
Since March, the Chinese regime has covered up the epidemic to demand that production continue. Their voices have been distorted to protect their identities.
I heard from my relatives in Wuhan last night there are still virus cases in Wuhan, but the data will not be reported or even secretly quarantined.
On April 8th, Wuhan will lift its lockdown, and various industries will resume production. Mr. Li, an owner of a barbecue restaurant, has 15 stores there. So far, he's lost almost 10 million yuan.
Workers are being paid and subsidized, but we've had no income for the past few months. The store also has to pay rent, including for some dormitories. The employees have to live, and we have to take care of them. So far, the business has lost almost 10 million yuan.
Mr. Li said restaurant owners in Wuhan were petitioning the regime to get help for small and medium-sized catering businesses. 150 restaurant owners signed, but they've had no reply. One restaurant owner says if she doesn't get help with rent and salaries, her business might go bankrupt.
Even if we start working again, we can't afford all this. We can only rely on the regime.
According to Taiwanese news media, in the first quarter of this year, more than 460,000 companies in mainland China went bankrupt because of the CCP virus outbreak. Videos circulating online show business owners protesting in different parts of China, asking the regime for help.
Many wholesalers said there's no customer to buy, no consumption, no one is buying clothes.
Qingdong owns a clothing factory in Hunan province. He said on March 31st, 8,000 or 9,000 people appealed to the regime at Zhuzhou City Hall. He said there were dozens of policemen at the scene. The authorities arrested more than a dozen business owners who were released that same evening. Qingdong added, police arrested people mainly to intimidate them and expel them from the area. But the next day, on April 1st, many market owners continued expressing their demands. Reporting by Shu Wenrong, NTD News.
Up next, some doctors are using light to disinfect their clinics. Studies show the technique may kill viruses without harming people. That and more after the break.
Viewers have described China Uncensored like The Daily Show, but about China.
At the beginning, I was super excited when I got 500 views, and now the show's grown to about 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. One episode reached 7.9 million people. I'm a little freaked out that that many people have seen my face. In 5 years, I see China Uncensored as the sole source of edutainment worldwide.
Are you tired of newspapers spinning the truth and pushing false narratives? And are you looking for honest coverage of Spygate, the true story of collusion? Or the truth behind the crisis at our southern border? Or how the Chinese Communist Party is working to subvert America and our way of life? Then you need to check out the Epoch Times newspaper. It's independent, nonpartisan, and it doesn't push any political agendas. Just go to readepic.com and try it yourself for a full month for just $1. You'll absolutely love it.
New UV light technology is being used to disinfect surfaces and open areas to slow the spread of the virus. Studies have shown UV light of a certain wavelength can kill viruses without harming humans. This is different from germicidal lamps that can cause cancer. NTD's Kevin Hogan has more.
Breakthroughs in lower wavelength UV light technology may prove useful in killing the virus on surfaces and in open areas. A Columbia University study saying it is safe on humans, unlike higher wavelength germicidal lamps that can cause cancer. A physician explains how it works.
It does not kill or penetrate our skin, but it does kill and penetrate the virus.
In Russia, certain types of UV lights used to disinfect the metro. The physician saying these new lights could disinfect the subways while people ride in them if they're approved by the FDA.
This can be implemented in hospitals all across the country. It can be implemented in our public transit system. And, the FDA should at least take a look at it.
Robots are used to disinfect hospitals with UV light, but he says they're slow and expensive as opposed to the lower wavelength light.
Here, you just take the wand and go down the hall and just kind of disinfect everything. And you could do liquid surfaces. You could do N95. The robot cannot disinfect N95.
Older germicidal lamps can ruin N95 masks if used to disinfect them. But the physician says the lower wavelength light can disinfect personal protective equipment without damaging it. Kevin Hogan, NTD News, New York.
One German woman started collecting toilet paper long before it became fashionable. Now she's featuring her pride and joy online.
As people fear global shortages, everyday products like toilet paper are in high demand. Collector and author Julie Gudehuus is very interested in toilet paper, but not because she's afraid of running out of it.
And I really have so much to say about it, and so I am happy that the interest is there. Otherwise, I think it is about the fact that people just want it, but I don't really have anything to do with that aspect. I can't contribute to that discussion.
Julie is the owner of a toilet paper collection that stretches all the way back to the late 80s. She currently has 800 rolls and is sharing her passion online.
I like it that there is interest in my YouTube videos. I had a feeling, and that's when I thought super spontaneously, I'm going to open it up and show it.
The collection, rigorously filed and labeled in a selection of folders, has taught Kudlow a lot about culture and society.
It opens up thought processes on what motivates people to buy certain loo roll. I would say that the most important factors are price and comfort. What does it feel like?
While the collection is now making a splash, the rest of us have realized you don't know what you've got till it's gone.
Coming up, a tiger at the Bronx Zoo has tested positive for the virus. Officials are saying it was infected by a zookeeper. It's the first time an animal has caught it from a person in the U.S. More on that after the break. In a New York City zoo, one of the tigers has tested positive for the virus. The discovery has some pet owners concerned.
Nadia, a 4-year-old tiger living at the Bronx Zoo in New York City, received positive test results on Monday. Officials say the tiger began to show symptoms after being exposed to an asymptomatic zoo employee.
What the keeper saw was these cats were coughing, some were wheezing.
The Malayan tiger is the first animal to have been infected by a human in the U.S. But Chief Veterinarian Cowley says it won't become widespread in the animal kingdom.
Event that we're going through this infection of our lions and tigers is really unique. So I don't think there is risk to many animals, many other species of animals.
In light of the discovery, the potential for animals to infect humans with the virus is lingering on people's minds, particularly pet owners. While the exact origin of the virus remains unknown, some speculate that it came from bats. As of now, the virus is spreading person to person.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox.